My name is Kiran Dhaliwal, and I'm happy to welcome you all to the first webinar AWL has organized. Today, we are here to talk about thriving in a post-COVID-19 world, a guide for women lawyers with a focus on job security and finance, topics that we know are uppermost in all our minds. Now, you may have people asking, why is this focus only on women lawyers? Well, we are the Association of Women Lawyers, and therefore our emphasis is on our own members' needs. You will agree that this has been a very confusing time. The Prime Minister's announcement yesterday has unfortunately only increased that confusion. The timing of the announcement, made on a public holiday, did not help. We were unable to gather further information, and that was not helpful at all. Law firms are unsure whether to open. The Chief Registrar of the Courts had a press statement dated today stating that the courts will remain closed until the 12th of May 2020 or further announcements from the government. So that may change, and everything remains in flux. Currently, it would appear that only the conveyancing and corporate sector can operate from the 4th of May, and that too only at 20 to 30% of the workforce. Now, what does that mean to a sole proprietor with only one staff member? We are again left with more questions than answers. This state of confusion, mixed messages that we have been given, varying positions taken at different times, even as regards incentives that are provided, what we can and what we can't do, has only made a difficult situation worse. And that brings me to the elephant in this virtual room. It is fear. Everyone, each one of us, whether an employer or an employee, we are all scared. The future is unclear, and it is difficult to know what it holds for us. Our conversations are changing. We use words like the new norm, but none of us really knows what that means. We know we need to exercise social distancing. We look to have virtual meetings where possible. We wash hands, we sanitize. We know our clients and their businesses will be affected, and that will have a knock-down effect on our own services and our incomes. But we still don't know the extent of it. The PM mentioned yesterday that our country has suffered losses of some 63 billion to date by reason of the MCO. The economic fallout is a reality. So what do? Do we let this fear overtake us? Do we run and hide? Do we bury our heads in the sand? I say no. We face our fears. We actually have no choice. If we want to survive, we need to find ways. We need to gather skills and ideas, to obtain knowledge, to face this challenge so that we can move forward in the best possible way. Knowledge can empower us, and that is why we in AWL had planned this session. With us is a great panel of speakers, and they're going to give you information, tips, ideas, and basically equip you with knowledge so that you can navigate through this. And I want to thank our panelists for agreeing to share their time with us. We have Salvamala Alagaratnam, who will tell us about employment law, both from the employer and employees' perspectives. We will then hear from Lisa Khan, who will present information on the government initiatives as relevant to SMEs and to us as individuals. Shanti Abraham will share information on different income streams and how to manage our clients. They will each speak for about 15 to 20 minutes, and we will then address any questions. But before we start our panel discussion, I'd like to invite Sheena Gurbakhash, our AWL president, who will present the data we obtained from the survey you all completed, and that will give us some context of where we all are. Over to you, Sheena.
On behalf of AWL, I would like to thank Lisa, Shanti, and Selva for joining us today and sharing with us. And of course, I would also like to thank Kiran for chairing the session. And also thanks to Santi and Danny, who are handling the back end for us. One of the challenges for us at AWL in this whole process was staying relevant, because we're a group of people who are used to meeting and being together, and now suddenly we're in the situation where we can't. So how do we stay relevant? How do we stay together? How do we continue to provide the support that we like to think we give all of you as members? And the one thing that came up in our conversations over and over again was what are we going to do? How are we going to get through this? And finance and job security is topmost on everyone's mind. Now, I don't know how all of you felt when you were filling in the survey that we issued. We issued that because we wanted to have, first of all, a foundation for what was relevant to everybody out there, and also so that we would have a structured discussion and we wouldn't be talking about all kinds of things that were not relevant to you. So it was geared to actually figure out what was topmost in your mind. When we got the results, quite frankly, it was quite, some of the results were quite amazing, because we didn't know you felt like that. And that then informed the way this session developed, the way we developed it. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing that, the results of the survey, primarily because we need to know that we are not alone. Whatever fear, anxiety you have, you are not alone. Whatever you are facing, you are not alone. And it helps for us all to actually know what the rest of us are thinking. So I'm going to go into that now. Oh, whoops. Remember to share screen. Am I sharing? Yes, you can all see the screen. Great, lovely. Okay, let's go into, okay, so where you're all from. Primarily our constituents, our members are from the Klang Valley, and that is reflected in the survey, which had over 100 participants. But we also got responses from Penang, Johor, and Pahang, as well as outside the Klang Valley in Selangor. So we're talking about people who have a primarily urban practice, a primarily commercial practice, and so the concerns we have are relevant to this group of people. It's reflective of the kind of practice you have. Most of our participants, 96% of you, are female. We had a couple of men who chimed in as well. And we do welcome men to come to our events and join us in our activities. We just hold firm to the principle that we're going to put women first. So one of the first questions we asked you was, do you think gender bias is going to affect what happens to you moving ahead? 35% of you think that it will. This is interesting because 50% of the bar, 51% of the bar is in fact female. But gender bias is a real thing. Plus, we also have to take into account that many of you are mothers, carers, and the bulk of the household management falls to you. And as we've seen in recent weeks, and certainly it's come up on our chat groups, the amount of cooking that's being done, the amount of cleaning that's being done, the amount of supervision of children that's being done, the amount of homeschooling that's being done, and primarily the bulk of it seems to fall on mothers to provide this added facility. I don't know where all the fathers are. I'm sure they're all weighing in, so please don't all shout at me and say that fathers don't do anything. I'm not saying that. But from what I'm seeing, the bulk of this is falling on mothers. More significantly, the messages that we're getting from government seem to indicate that this role should fall to women and mothers. And it discounts the fact that we're also working, contributing people who are contributing to household incomes, and in some cases being the sole source of a household income. So who are you? Where are you from? Right? 21% of our respondents were fresh graduates. 25% have been working less than 5 years. 26% have been working for more than 20 years, and the rest fall within that band of 5 to 20 years. Seniority is also going to play a part in how you cope moving forward, right? There are going to be cases where if you're very senior, you're basically going to be persuaded to take a lesser role so that cheaper, younger people can be found to take your place. If you don't have any experience, that's probably going to be held against you. So experience matters as well. The type of work that you do. 33% of you are legal assistants. 29% of you have your own firms or run your own businesses or in a partnership. So these are the two big gaps. The rest of you are employees. 15% are employed, but not in a law firm. And the red section over here, which is about 12%, I think, work in law firms, but not as lawyers. So that it's going to hit everybody across the board. This is the chart I find interesting, right? 23% of us are the sole income earners for our household. That means we are supporting ourselves, our children, our parents, or other miscellaneous people. 51% of you contribute at least between 30 to 50% in income. So what happens when that total income falls? Because it may not just be you who suffers a loss in income. The person who's the main contributor may also suffer a loss in income. And 12% of you contribute more than 50% to your household. Only 12% do not contribute at all. So what has been happening during the MCO, and we thought this was very important as well. 44% of us have not been paid or are only partially being paid during the MCO, which means we're already seeing drops in income. And if, as we all fear, there is a subsequent spike in cases and we go into another lockdown, then this is going to happen again and again and again, which means that we need to get assets in order because people are going to start resorting to savings, but at some point, savings are going to start running out. So then we wanted to know about the effectiveness of the government aid programs. 51% of you are not eligible for any aid at all. 11% of you are eligible and have got your aid. 25% of you are in the process of getting that aid. Hold on, I just need to move this. Okay, so yeah, you're in the process of getting that aid. So the question is, there is aid out there, but is it getting to you fast enough? Is it getting to you when it's timely? Because it's no point getting money after your landlord has evicted you. You need to get it before that happens. Then we wanted to know about the deferment of schemes under the current Bank Negara, the deferment of interest under the Bank Negara schemes. This as well now has gone through a bit of a flip-flop with certain banking establishments saying they're not going to be deferring interest. They are going to be deferring interest. They don't know what to do. The people who've got car loans, particularly HP, are in a bit of flux. But what is important is that 34% of you are going to be deferring your credit card loans and insurance payments, which means that there will be interest accruing. And you need to find out exactly what your commitment is going to be after this deferment. We're very glad to see that 33% of you appear to have no debts whatsoever. I wish I was in that situation. Withdrawals from EPF. When the lockdown was first announced, we were told that we could make withdrawals from EPF. 65% of you will not be making withdrawals from EPF. Again, that decision to withdraw or not to withdraw is going to have an implication on how much savings you have in there at the end of the day. Someone made a calculation that said if you withdrew $6,000 now, $6,000 now, which is $500 a month for the next 1 year, you would actually end up with $30,000 less in your savings when you got to 55. So I don't know, but the math is correct, but it seems to me to be the right kind of number, given compounding interest and all that. 10% of you don't, 25% of you don't have enough funds in EPF to actually even go there for withdrawals. So the decision to take out or not to take out is something you have to weigh carefully before you make that decision. So what's going to happen 6 months from now? 35% of you say you expect to continue being paid in full. Well, I really hope that works out for you. 25% of you are expecting a drop of at least 20%. 23% are expecting a drop of between 20 to 50%, and 16% are expecting a drop of more than 50%. So we need to start thinking about budgets and how we're going to cope if the worst of this actually happens. So we then said, okay, we've got an employee perspective. What is the employer perspective? And the question we asked was, are you confident about being able to pay your overheads? 68% of you said it didn't apply to you. That's the big purple blob there. So I presume those are people who are not running the businesses, which is in line with the first slide we had where the number of people who were in business was about 30%. So it's the remaining 30% that we have to talk about. There is only a sliver, less than 10%, who think they will be able to cover, 13% are confident they'll be able to cover all their overheads in the next 6 months to come. When you break this down, this is the data that we extrapolated. Of those who are self-employed or in partnerships, only 40% are confident they can keep paying their overheads in full. That means there are 60% people who don't think they're going to be able to do this. 30% think they're only going to be able to cover between 80 and 50%. And 1 out of 6 businesses do not think their businesses will survive. This is going to have a knock-on effect because employers are now going to be looked to cutting staff, cutting costs, cutting real estate, and cutting wherever they can in order for the business to survive. The other sobering fact that we have to bear in mind is most SMEs in this country, small businesses, micro businesses, don't survive more than 5 years when times are good. So the question is, how many of them are going to survive with the uncertainty that's coming ahead? Our next question was, can you manage if you have to take a part-time, if you have to take a pay cut or work part-time? 45% of you are saying you cannot manage. So we have to think about how you're going to cope because we can't all just stop managing. This was a slide I think that really did jar, which was how you were going to survive the next 6 months. If you look at this, only 55% of you have a plan, which is to not take out a loan because you've got sufficient in reserve. 37% of you are saying you are going to take out a loan or to supplement your business. But 45.9% of you just don't know. The thing with planning, the thing with crisis management, and it's something that I work in, is that you survive a crisis best by planning for it. You cannot bury your head in the sand. You cannot say, I don't know. You cannot say, I don't want to know. Because if that is what you do, you will end up being buffeted by all kinds of things that are pretty obvious in hindsight, but which you didn't want to think about. So where will you turn if you're going to refinance your assets, if you're going to move ahead? Well, options are use loans or finance or use savings or refinance existing assets, which is 66.3%. Apply from a loan from a government or from a financial institution, 9%. 17% said they were going to turn to families and friends. Very few of us said that they were going to apply for a government subsidy or grant. And Lisa will talk to you later about what is available, because if those things are available, please go out and take advantage of them. We're very glad to note that nobody was going to go to an along. And a few of you are going to sell your existing assets. But bear in mind too that those existing assets are going to diminish in value as time goes on, as the market for them, the market demand falls. So Kiran did a supplemental survey on qualitative, which was a qualitative survey as opposed to a quantitative one. And this is what we've gotten out of that. As far as employees are concerned, what they fear is the lack of trust in their employers' motives. We're hearing about employers who are taking advantage to force pay cuts, force disadvantages, working conditions. We've heard from people who are working at home, who are being told that who we are told are being called all hours of the night, you know, after the working day, all kinds of times, and they feel that they are being taken advantage of. We're also seeing concerns about gender bias and all the perceptions about women's role in the home competing with workplace competition, which there is a genuine fear that when the decision is made as to who to retain and who to let go, women are going to be let go and men are going to be retained. There is a lack of trust in employers' motives, and there is resentment that employers didn't plan for contingencies. What this simply means is that if you're the kind of employer who's come back and shown photographs of you, you know, being on holiday here, there, everywhere, etc., and now you're saying, you know, you've just bought a new car or whatever, there is resentment from employees who are saying, well, you know, why didn't you put the money aside so that you could retain us? On the positive, most employees want to stay in work. Most employees are willing to collaborate and work to ensure the survival of the firm. And many people feel that this has been positive because they've learned about technology, they're learning to reboot their practices, that the legal profession is being dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century, where webinars and all these things are now being used very effectively. I'm almost running out of time, so in fact, I have run out of time. Oh no, you've got 30 seconds to go. So where do we go from here? The first thing is you've got to know yourself, what your needs are in the medium, short, and long term. Assess your strengths, your skills, and your assets and resources. By assets and resources, I don't just mean your real estate or your things, but also who you know and what you can do. Set a goal or a direction. Plan how you're going to achieve that goal and give yourself time to achieve it. Accept that you will not always succeed. And if you don't succeed in one direction, change and move in another. This is really important, which is set your boundaries. How far are you willing to compromise? What are you prepared to give up? And what are your hard limits? Because there is a time when you are squeezed so hard that really you've got nothing to lose by walking away. So know in your own mind what this is, so you're not pushed into making that decision because you are angry, desperate, or upset. Where do we go from here? Reach out and build connections. Who are your mentors? Who are your support? At AWL, we want to be your support, right? So when we say build new connections and associations, this is the time to go out and start joining clubs, meeting up with people, talking to people. It doesn't have to be work related. Even if you join a group of people who are baking cakes or doing cross stitch or learning to repair cars, do it. You don't know where it will lead. And if you can't get paid for your services, volunteer, because there are many people out there who need your skills, whether it's just to take things from point A to point B, whether it's actually to tell them how to negotiate stuff. You have those skills because you are lawyers. Most of all, look after yourselves. physically, mentally, spiritually. Pray if you have to, meditate if you have to, learn new skills if you have to, learn a new language if you've got the time to, whatever it takes, and go out and work out and eat at the best that you can. And most of all, please don't be afraid to ask for help. We're here, the mentors, all the people in this panel are here. There's a whole host of other people who are here. We've gone through recessions before. This one looks scarier than probably any one that we've done before. But we can at least give you suggestions, even if we can't give you anything else. And remember that, like all bad times, this too will pass. And on that note, I am so over time, but I'm going to hand you over back to Kiran. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sheena. That was a lot to get through in a short time. Now, that survey information was very sobering, and it explains the fear that we're all having. I completely echo what Sheena just said. Reach out. We are all out here for you, and you'll be surprised at the support that you can actually get by just reaching out to any of us, or your own contacts as well. Now, from the quantitative data, which I must really thank the girls from our office in helping me, reach out to their friends to obtain, a big takeaway I had was how employees appreciated open and honest discussions with them. Employees realize that there are problems, and they too want the firm to survive. As Sheena said, we are in this together, and if we engage openly and frankly, we build trust, and in that way, cooperation. That is how we can work out the best way to ensure the survival of the firm or company and obtain job security.